Potatoes, or one of the crops that we could potentially be eating 12 months of the year if we get our timings right and harvest times right. What I've got here is a potato called Swift. Well, the variety is called Swift, and it's a first early potato. And we bought these originally about 5 years ago. Potatoes are really easy to save your own seed from, so you only need potentially to buy them the very first time. We've also tried a different variety called Rocket with pretty much the same identical results. They're a really fast grower, so we could be looking from planting to harvest about 8 weeks. We could be having potatoes. So there's 3 different types of potatoes, if you like. We've got first earlies, which is what Swift and Rocket are. We've got second earlies and main crop potatoes, and we'll come to those 2 in just a moment. So when to plant first early potatoes? Well, the first thing a lot of gardeners do is they'll what's called chit the potatoes. And if we have a close-up, I'm just trying to find perhaps a better one. If we have a close-up on the potatoes, you can see these little eyes here. This is where the growth comes out of. So if we were to plant this in the ground, these would eventually sprout and become stems, and that's where the leaves come off. So we want between, well, I would say 3 or 4 chits is reasonable, especially for a first early potato. There's more than 3 or 4 here, and we can easily just rub them off with our thumb to leave us with the 3 or 4 that we want. So when to start chitting? Well, I think a lot of gardeners say about 6 weeks before you want to plant. I'm not so sure it's that important with first early potatoes. That's our experience anyway. In the past, we've just planted first early potatoes without the chits, and they've sprouted just fine. I think the more important with the main crop potatoes, it does give them a head start because you're basically planting the potato with the growth already up 3 or 4 weeks growth already potentially on the potato. So, how to plant a potato? Well, we grow in buckets. First early potatoes, that is, not the main crop potatoes. Why do we grow in buckets rather than the ground? It's purely, well, there's 2 reasons really. The first reason is just because of space. You do need a lot of space for potatoes. It takes up a lot of ground, which we don't have. And the second reason is if we were to plant into buckets, we could potentially bring them indoors in case of a frost. And I know there's some of you might be screaming at me right now that it's too cold to plant potatoes, too early, but we can mitigate potential frost. So, okay, let's go ahead and plant the potato first. So I'm going to be looking to plant that sort of halfway down, and I reckon that's about a trowel's depth. So we're just going to go ahead and make a little hole with the trowel, and with the chits up, I've rubbed them all off apart from 3. And that is basically it. So let's come back to the issue of frost. We've already gone ahead and planted, well, this will be the 15th bucket that we've just done on camera here. There's 14 more buckets down here that we've already planted with the first earlies just in the same way. Let's say there was a serious frost. We've got a couple of issues. If you've got the space and the time, you could potentially take the buckets home. That's not really practical for us. Our home's quite well. It's a car journey away, and it's not really practical for us to take the potatoes home. So we would put them in the polytunnel in the case of a frost. And on top of the buckets, we could put something like this. This is corrugated plastic sheets. We would do something like that. You could also have the double glazing frames. We've also got a couple of them, put them on top. It depends how cold it's going to get. If we're talking sub-zero for a long time, -5 sort of temperatures, all bets are off really. You are taking a bit of a gamble planting at this time of the year, but this is our 6th year growing potatoes now, and we've never lost potatoes to frost. I've just checked the weather report for the next 2 weeks, and temperatures are looking at around 7 degrees during the day and 3 degrees overnight. So it's absolutely fine for potatoes. Beyond that, who knows? We may have to deal with a serious frost and we may lose the potatoes. That's just the gamble you take, really. But that's how we deal with the frost. What else to show you? So I mentioned a minute ago there were 3 different types of potatoes. We've shown you the first earlies just now. This is a second early called, well, this variety is called Charlotte, and we would plant these in the ground. This is a main crop called Desiree, and again, we would plant these in the ground purely because they make bigger potatoes. Buckets are perfect for first early potatoes just because of the size. If you were to go into a supermarket, first earlies is what we would call new potatoes, at least here in the UK. So let's go around to the area just behind the polytunnel, because this is where we would plant potatoes. This was actually a chicken coop before we took the allotment, and we've basically mulched the ground. This is all our beds are no dig, so we apply 1 layer of mulch every year. It was well rotted horse manure last year, and these, what we're looking at here, are overwintered cabbages, Savoy cabbages, 2 different types. We've had a couple of failures, and we can just snip these out. Actually, these can go on the compost. These are no good. This one too. But the rest of them,
explain why they are no good.
Well, because they haven't made a cabbage. Because they're not going to make a cabbage, you know, they should have a head by now. So this is all leaves and no cabbage. So straight on the compost for that. This one too. This is all leaves, and the size of the cabbage there. I mean, it's not, if it hasn't made a cabbage by now, it's not going to. These are winter cabbages, so they should have made a cabbage by, well, I would have said January. Let's go ahead and harvest one of these cabbages. Let's try this one here. We've had an overnight frost, and the outer leaves are looking quite damaged, but I wonder what happens when we get inside. Well, it's rock hard, to be honest. It's looking okay inside, you know. You know, that's a decent cabbage. We could take that home and eat that. That's absolutely fine. Leeks, same principle applies. This was all sown over last summer, June and July, ready to pop straight in the ground when we harvested potatoes last year. So we would plant second earlies in one bed, and we would plant the main crop potatoes in the other bed. It's a bit too early now to be planting second earlies and main crop. We would do that, I would say, around about 1st of April. Just here you can see some weeds, and these are not perennial weeds. These are weeds that were in the application of last year's manure that are growing through, and there's a few ways of dealing with these weeds. They're not perennial weeds, so they will just come out finger and thumb. You know, they're real easy to pull out. Alternatively, you could get, for example, a rake. We don't have a rake, but just to illustrate the point, we would get a fork. And, you know, they do come out pretty easy, and you can see how crumbly that compost is on top. This is well rotted horse manure from last year. There is a third option, and that is if you had some mulch, which we do in this bag. We've got well rotted horse manure purely because it's in plentiful supply where we are. One option could be to literally smother the weeds with the mulch, the compost, the manure, whatever it is you're using. And obviously we haven't got enough for the whole bed, but just to illustrate the point, just literally smother the weeds like that. If you go in no dig, you don't want to be turning the soil or rotivating, and just literally leave it like that. The mulch will block out the light and kill the weeds. So I'm not going to plant the second earlies or main crops today, but just to show you how we would do it, let's use this rock here, and I'll just grab the shovel. So we would be looking at something like about that depth. Make a little make a little hole in the ground, slide the potato in, and cover it up. We would then mulch the entire area with the well-rotted horse manure or compost, and that would be it for 12 months. The second earlies we would harvest in around about the first week of August, and the main crop potatoes we would harvest the first week of September. So the way that we would stay self-sufficient in potatoes from the first earlies, the second earlies on the main crop is that the first early harvest would run from May through to the end of July. The second early harvest, which we would harvest in August, that would keep us going until, say, Christmas. And then the main crop potatoes, which would stay in storage, they would see us through from January all the way through till May again. And we're still eating the main crop potatoes now, and hopefully we will be doing until May. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about how we become self-sufficient in potatoes. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.